So all this started with about, I'm going to say it's about 1974, 75. Some predecessors to Haley, when it was still Boulder City News. You might remember Teddy Fenton and Bill Harbor.
Oh, yeah.
They were personalities in Boulder City. So they came and gave a gift to my mom and dad. They said, here, Dr. Bill, Carol, here's a picture of the site, the property that you own. We thought you'd like to see the history. So it was a picture of this building and a few of the buildings behind, and that stayed in my dad's office at home since 1974. So I always saw that picture. About 2 years ago, my mom was chatting with, I think then part of Historic Preservation, Alan Goya, talking about the building. He said, who you need to talk to is Mark Hall Patton down at I think they called it the Clark County Heritage Museum at the time. So it was about 2 years ago. We made a visit. I was in St. Anne's. I said, I'll meet you there. And we all got together and we shared with Mark Hall Patton the picture that Teddy Fenton had given.
Which is that?
And he said, we were calling it the ticket office. He said, well, the one thing I can tell you is it's not the ticket office and it's not the passenger depot, because we have that here in Henderson. So they did is I guess they moved the passenger depot at some time prior to that date down to when they were just forming the Clark County Heritage Museum. I believe it's still there. So he said, what I would do is contact Union Pacific, because they would be able to tell you what buildings were being placed along the railroad. So I think I called Council Bluffs, Omaha, Denver, to no avail. Sometimes you're interested in history, but not everybody there is. I said, let me see what's online. So thanks to Google Books, and this is what I think what I gave to Jill and to Haley, they had volumes 10, 1930, minus a lost month, December, and volume 11, 1931, volume 10, 1932, volume 11, a few more months lost, but the history. And I just started reading through it, which really brings us to this month. And this month is, they had back in September of 1930, September 17, 1930, the beginning of the Boulder branch line of the Union Pacific. That was with governor, 2 U.S. senators, or 1 U.S. congressman, and a lot of fanfare. That was September, 4 months and a half after the beginning of the branch line in what they call Boulder Junction, down by Allegiant Stadium. I think it's between Valley View, Decatur, Russell, and Sunset. Well, it turns out through the Union Pacific Volume 10, it said 4 months and a half after that, on February, the words they use, on February 1st, Boulder City was, I think they said, there was a phrase that they used that I think is really important for us to celebrate starting today. They said, it was Joel Priest who wrote this, Boulder City was placed on the map February 1st when the Union Pacific system completed its 22.71 mile branch line connecting with the main line south of Las Vegas, the first major unit of the $165 million project. They still called it, as you see in the pictures, the Boulder Canyon Project.
Yay!
Even though it was moved to Black Canyon before that. So there we have the beginning of the line. But there was really no celebration marking the end of the line, the February 1st, the arrival in what would become Boulder City. But remember, Union Pacific brought the track from Boulder Junction to here, to about a block east of here where the passenger depot would be. All of the other track would be built by 6 companies. Now, if you read in here, they didn't even open for bids for the construction. Bids will be open March 4th. So this was written before March 4th, 1931 at Denver, Colorado for construction of the Hoover Dam power plant and pertinent works. So they did the rail beyond this point. So really it's a Union Pacific anniversary celebration. They brought the line to what would become Boulder City February 1st, 90 years ago. Then that still didn't tell us too much about these buildings, but what about these buildings? So I said, Well, I suppose from the pictures we could look at Union Oil or Standard Oil, which I guess now is it's all Chevron Corporation now. But just as they weren't too keen on history when I was calling before, I said, let me see what Union Pacific has. So if you flip from March 1931 to September 1931, we always come in and these volumes are 100 pages every month. Union Pacific put out a magazine, 100 pages worth. It told all the anniversaries, weddings, births, hospitalizations, vacations of everybody in the Union Pacific family. You can see how it's really family. But in the notes of LASL, so where this is still the Salt Lake and Los Angeles and Salt Lake notes, so they broke it down by regions. So we always fall under the Salt Lake, Los Angeles regions. You'll see, now this is September, so it goes back to August or July, sometime before that. Industries, and this is really the secret, and this is I think the answer to your question, Haley. It said trackage at Boulder City, Nevada, to serve government warehouses located at that point to accommodate traffic consigned to the government in connection with its operations on the Hoover Dam is now in course of construction. Montoba Lumber is building a warehouse and yard storage in Las Vegas for lumber, millwork, builders, hardware, supplies. And here, ... we have constructed industry tracks to serve Standard Oil Company of California and Union Oil Company of Nevada at Boulder City. These two companies have completed as of September 1st, their storage tanks, warehouse, and offices. So the picture shows the storage tank, the picture shows one of the office. There are a few warehouses behind, but what really helped me out a lot, hey there, Tom, was a map that I found. Let's go back to the Clark County Heritage Museum. In the meantime, because I'm reading this, went back down to the Heritage Museum, and Mark had a wonderful exhibit on maps of Clark County. It may still be up there. He said it was going to stay until January. I don't know if it stayed a little bit longer. But in it, the oldest of the maps of Boulder City, the plat map of, I think, January 1st, 1932, showed this section of the state highway, some of the side streets, and the buildings that were extant at the time. So you'll see on this block, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 buildings. Only 4 of them are extant now. And in the Dairy Queen block on the other side of Mesquite, there were 3 buildings, or 4 buildings, excuse me, none extant now. And across the street, I think at my barbershop block, there are 2 buildings, none extant right now. But this shows those buildings that were present in January 1st of 1932, who were part of the plat map of the exhibits. So it's both a picture of and a mapping of these buildings. What's interesting is this map shows more than that. It shows the Union Pacific lines that came through in February, but if you look carefully, it'll show the industry tracks that Union Pacific built for Standard Oil and for Union Oil, leading right up, Tom, to the back of your building. It stops right behind your building. So
that's what the steps down.
That was the industry track. So basically, to serve the trains, to really serve any fuel oil use for Boulder City, this is where you can even see where it was all fenced in. So everything was a kind of a closed city, but this was a closed area within the closed city for this product that they were doing. Now there are some things that don't exist anymore. Cactus Street was decommissioned. Mesquite Street is still open. I think that was the last sign they put on in the Boulder City Parkway district. But so you'll see. So this is what the outskirts of Boulder City along the branch line looked like January 1932. And of those, what would you say, 15 buildings, 4 still remain. And 2 of them, I'd say, they remain in relatively good condition. This office, for whatever it was used, maybe tickets, but there's a floor safe, so whatever they were selling, they were storing here. And then your not the museum, but your gallery in the back is basically untouched. You can see the other buildings, this side, the Monster Museum, this side, the Hoover Dam Trading Post, have been clad in wood paneling. I think they put shingle roofs and things like that on tops. So underneath it all is still a corrugated metal and wood frame building that goes back to August or earlier of 1931. So I guess the next step would be, yes, Contact Standard Oil or Chevron in San Ramon, California, they may have a little bit more about this compound and how they and Union Pacific work side by side. They built the buildings, Union Pacific built the industry tracks, and the industry track led right to this building. You might even see that beyond these industry tracks, there was another track that went over to Gray Plaza. Well, that's where the passenger depot was. So my hunch is at the same time they built these industry tracks, they also built the passenger tracks to the depot, now resting in Henderson. I think as we read through that Union Pacific history, we'll find a little bit more. But my dream is this, that Boulder City, the train museum, all of this can really celebrate these moments. What can we say is the beginning of Boulder City? Well, I suppose you could say when six companies was chosen in April of 1931. But I like to say when the branch line, the 22 miles, were completed, and a train came here, and then some of these buildings along the way, so that the construction of Boulder City for the construction of Hoover Dam could commence. So I don't know how possible it is, but I think it would show a lot of community spirit. That Haley, this is not something that I expect you to do, but maybe everybody in Boulder City combined. Sometimes you could say, on this day in history, or 90 years ago today, or 90 years ago this week, since we're weekly papers, I could see throughout this year, 2021 and 22 and 23 and 24, right until Roosevelt dedicated the dam September 30th to 1935, there would be so much interesting history from all around the city. It might start here, but it moves quickly up to the historic district and around, and we'll just see, in this day or in this month, in 90 years ago, this is what happened. I'm guessing that in 1981, the 50th anniversary, there would have been more people alive at the time. So that the 31ers, most of them would still have been in their 70s and 80s, but they would have been here, and they would have been able to be communicated with. Now I think we've lost that history. We've lost that living history. None of us knows where we're going to be 10 years from now, but wouldn't this be a great way to begin the celebration of Boulder City Centennial by making notes of this day in history 90 years ago? This is what happened. And what I did here is just summarize in 2 paragraphs what 2 volumes of the Union Pacific magazine had discovered. So I really give this to all of you. To our news, to our chamber, to our railroad, everybody else. This is our history. So congratulations. I do think that sometime in February it's worth saying happy anniversary, Boulder City. You're 90 years old, because somebody wrote on that day, Boulder City was placed on the map, February 1st, 1931.
Very cool.
So congratulations, everyone.
Thank you for that
gift. Feel free to use these, but there's a lot more that I just couldn't read. Again, when you download this, it's 100 pages per month.
And look how intense it is.
Yeah, but and you'll learn a lot about life in 1931 from the ads in between.
I need more pictures in my reading.
Sure. But there
And they
you
say
go.
this